So where we at?
Sorry about that, guys. Murmurings. Who are we that you murmur against us?
He said, "Who are we that?" So read that verse again.
And Moses
start at verse 7, actually.
And in the morning.
So this is Exodus chapter 16, verse 7.
And in the morning, then ye shall see the glory of the Lord, for that he heareth your murmurings against the Lord. And what are we that ye murmur against us?
Right. So Moses asked, he said, "What are we that you murmur against us?" Right. Keep going.
And Moses said, "This shall be when the Lord shall give you in the evening flesh to eat, and in the morning bread of the full. For that the Lord heareth your murmurings which ye murmur against him. And what are we? Your murmurings are not against us, but against the Lord."
All right. So he's trying to tell him, he's like, we ain't nothing. Right? You think we did this? You think you complaining against us? He's like, no. I'm doing what the Most High God told me to do. So when you talk against what I do, really you're talking against the Most High God. Right? And that's what we have to understand. That's why when Yahushua came, he said, well, now listen, when you believe in me, really you're not believing in me, but you're believing in the one who sent me. Right? And when you hear my word or reject my word, then really you're not rejecting my word. You rejecting the word of the one who sent me. Because what I'm saying, I'm just saying exactly what he told me to say. Exactly what he commanded me to say. He said, I'm saying exactly what he commanded me to say. Right? So if he's saying exactly what the Father commanded him to say, and we reject it, then really we've rejected the Father. All right. Let's go ahead and well, actually, we can stay on that point. If we look at it, that's the same thing with us. So what do you think happens when Yahushua says something to us, and then we have to relay the message? Exactly. Matthew chapter 10.
Stop talking about now.
We'll get to it.
Yes, Mom.
Matthew chapter 10, verse 40. This is Matthew chapter 10, verse 40.
He that receiveth you receiveth me, and he that receiveth me receiveth him that sent me.
Right? So he's talking to the disciples. He said, anybody who received one of y'all disciples, well, at the same time, they receiving me. And anybody who received me, just like he told us in John, well, they actually receiving the one who sent me. Right? This all works out because we're all saying the same message that comes from the Father. So when you accept the message that comes from the Father, even though I'm delivering it, you really accepting the Father. Keep going.
He that receiveth a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward.
Right? So if you receive a prophet, right, in the name of a prophet, so if I'm a prophet, right, and I'm coming from John the Baptist. So John the Baptist gave me a message. He's a prophet, but I'm coming in John the Baptist's name, and I'm a prophet. So I'm saying, hey, you know what I'm saying? I'm a prophet. The prophet John the Baptist sent me, right? If you receive me and I came in John the Baptist's name, well, then the reward that goes to the prophet or that would come from the prophet still goes to you. It doesn't change, right? So he said anybody who receives the prophet in the prophet's name will, go ahead and read it.
He that receiveth a prophet in the name of a prophet shall receive a prophet's reward. And he that receiveth a righteous man in the name of a righteous man shall receive a righteous man's reward.
So he threw that in there just so people wouldn't misconstrue it. You know, they'd try to interpret things however they want. Well, no, he was talking about prophet. See, you ain't a prophet. See, you trying to say you God right now by saying if I reject you, I'm rejecting God. Well, now let's talk about righteous men, right? That anybody who receive a righteous man, right, in the name of a righteous man, then you won't lose your reward. So it's the same thing. Right? Yahushua was a righteous man. We speaking the same word as him, and we righteous men. Well, then it's the righteous man reward. Right? Keep going. Let's hear the last one he said.
And whosoever shall give to drink unto one of these little ones a cup of cold water only in the name of a disciple, verily I say unto you, he shall in no wise lose his reward.
Right? One of these little ones talking about a baby in the faith, a young one in the faith. Right? If they come in the name of a disciple, in other words, they saying, hey, I'm a disciple too. right? If they come in the name of disciple, and that's the reason why we give them something to drink, well, that's the reward for us, right? That's a reward for the people. We being disciples, if we live after the manner of disciples, we come in the name of a disciple, then that's the reward. That's the blessing that he put on people who take care of us, all right? So that's what we look at. It's important that we understand that and we believe it, because once we will believe it, then the problem that the Pharisees had, right, that we looked at the beginning, and I think it was John chapter 12, probably about verse 42, 43 maybe, when we were looking at the Pharisees, the people didn't want to confess Yahushua, right, because they were afraid that they would get put out of the synagogue, right? That all happens because they don't believe the word, right? Once you look at the word and you understand it and you put your trust in it and you hear it and you walk in it, then you don't have a fear of that, because you know, well, by me rejecting this, and anybody who rejects it other than me, really what they're doing is rejecting God. It takes the onus off of you. It's just like, man, I'm just here to deliver this message, right? It helps us understand why we need to walk in the word and always confess Yahushua, right? Why we always need to stand on what we've been given, right? If it's written, that's why we walk in it. We don't need to shy away. We don't need to be afraid of what people may think. We don't need to do any of that. We just need to walk in the word, because anybody who speaks against it, it just makes manifest what they believe. It just makes manifest that they do not accept the Father. If we say what's correct and they don't accept it, then they do not accept the Father. That's all it shows. And once we understand that, it'll give us more confidence, right? It gives us more confidence in what we say, what we believe, and how we act. All right. So where were we? Who remembers other than T? It's 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I need a hint.
Need some hints? T, give them some hints.
Somebody was taken somewhere, but they didn't see it.
No.
That's what we was last
No, it wasn't. It was way
was.
past that.
We did it
Zedekiah?
in a row, yeah.
No, we didn't read about it. We might have recapped it.
We recapped.
We talking about Isaiah?
I'll tell you what we was talking about.
We talked. No, don't cheat. Don't cheat. Who?
Of course.
Oh yeah, we definitely were talking about the Lord.
I remember.
Just tell me where we.
The wall
The wall, what?
was torn down.
The wall was torn down.
Babel, right? Babylon.
Yeah.
Babylon's wall. Yeah, Babylon's wall is like the Earth Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
Was torn down.
Mm-hmm. Read about that.
Torn down.
Huh?
Babylon's walls were torn down.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Not Babylon's walls were turned. That's not the line. Who was Babylon?
No. I need more.
Got torn down. So who are we?
Jerusalem?
Jerusalem. All right. So we're Jerusalem, and who's against us?
Babylon.
Babylon. Okay. So Babylon tore down our walls.
Oh, got it.
There we go. Somehow, right? The detail's not important. Just the walls got torn down in Babylon. So what else? So what happened after that, right? So we were reading. Remember, we were reading. I think it was Chronicles chapter 36, 2 Chronicles chapter 36, right? And we were reading. No cheating. Hey, baby, it's your beautiful self.
Don't pretend like you tired.
I am.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me my bottle of water that's in the kitchen though, on the big island thing I got?
Don't pretend like you tired.
Good one, Ty.
You right here?
I think so. It's like I'm at the kitchen table.
Let's stop talking all.
Or it might be on the couch. I don't remember.
Go ahead,
I
Shanice.
need a person.
You need a person.
Daniel.
Oh.
How did we get to Daniel?
Huh?
We talked about somebody before Daniel.
Ezekiel, bro.
That's what I was waiting for. Cyrus.
Oh.
King Cyrus, right? Good job. All right, that was 2 weeks ago. I didn't remember until T said something.
Okay.
So we had King Cyrus. Remember we were talking about King Cyrus? And what was special about King Cyrus?
Was anyone by the couch? Oh, living room. Thank you, Tasha.
Zahar, have a seat.
You receive a righteous man's reward.
Did you feed him? Yeah. Why can't I remember anything?
So we had King Cyrus. What was special about him? Who said something special about him? What prophet?
Isaiah.
Yes, Isaiah.
He talks about him like way before, like in Uzzah. No, in
Uzzah.
how do you say it? Yeah, in that time.
Which one?
In the like 4 of them together.
Very good. 4 of them. So which 4? Who we start with?
No.
You're done. Who
Wait, hold on.
we looking at?
I can't remember.
No. Different 4.
It was
So we had
last, though. That's what I was trying to say.
So Uzziah,
Oh, that's what I was saying.
Jotham,
I said
Ahaz, and Hezekiah. All right.
That's what I was trying to say, though.
Yeah, it
Just
was.
can't read.
There's
That's
no word
all.
up there. There's no other number here.
You can't read.
So we had Isaiah speaking in that time about somebody who came after this time, right? After Zedekiah's time. So this is a good amount of years after. All right. And he spoke about this man named Cyrus, named him by name, right? What else did we talk about?
We talked about how God didn't let Isaiah speak unless it was.
No, that's not Isaiah.
That's not Isaiah.
No, that was the week prior.
Okay. Then we talked about how.
Very good.
What's happening?
I remember that. It was during the time that the tabernacle was there, and he was like, it'll be rebuilt. And then he was saying that you'll come back and inhabit your land or something. Everybody's already there. And like, well, what are you talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Very good. So then we got to Cyrus, right? So that's
Before Cyrus?
that's how we got to Cyrus. So we got to Cyrus. We learned about that. But then we realized in Cyrus. So we had to go where to try to fill that gap? No, not Ezekiel. How do we end up trying to fill the gap? Daniel, right? So we went to Daniel. What? You can cheat on this one.
4. 5.
Who says 4?
It's in between 4 and 5. Oh, why not do it like this?
It's 5.
Daniel chapter 5. So let's go to it. This is Daniel chapter 5. All right, we're gonna try to fill some of these gaps. Right, so we got a couple kings that come in between. You know what I'm talking about? All right, and we have a couple kings that come in between Cyrus and Zedekiah. So we want to try to fill the gap, right? So who is the king of Babylon? Who was running the world at the time of Zedekiah's death? Who was running the world at the time of Zedekiah's death? Nebuchadnezzar. We learned about Nebuchadnezzar's son. Who remembers? Remember that?
No, we didn't read about that.
Yeah, we did. Read about him real quick, and then we closed out. I said we'd get to it this week.
He wasn't doing. Or Nebuchadnezzar was in there.
It doesn't start with that.
The one after, a couple of ones after that. Hey. So that's Persian.
Don't even buy me. His son.
Now, let's read about him. This is
Because Nebuchadnezzar, there was no evidence of him going back on what he was doing for God, right? Or something like that. You kind of mentioned something like that, or it was like he humbled himself.
He humbled himself, yeah.
Yes, and there was no like him going back, but his son didn't do that.
Right. Well, So we'll learn about his son right now. That's what we pretty much gonna learn about. I'm not sure how much we talked. Well, I might have mentioned it. Since you said it, I must have mentioned it. We didn't really read too much about that though. We're about to read Nebuchadnezzar's son. This is Daniel. This is Daniel chapter 5, verse 1. That's probably how it's pronounced in the pre-Hebrew. Daniel. Daniel.
Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords.
So who made a great feast?
Belshazzar.
Everybody say it out loud.
Belshazzar.
All right, we're gonna try to remember some of these names. It's tough, but if we say it out loud, we talk about it, it gets a little bit more easy.
Even Daniel's Babylonian name sounds like it.
It's Belteshazzar, almost the same name. So we have, what's his name?
Belteshazzar.
No,
That's Daniel's name. Sorry about that. So what we just read, whose name is that?
Belshazzar.
Yeah.
Belshazzar. So this is who? All right, well, keep reading. Can it tell us?
Belshazzar, the king, made a great feast to 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Belshazzar, whilst he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple, which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines might drink therein. Then they brought.
So his father was who? Nebuchadnezzar, right? So his father was Nebuchadnezzar, and then he brought all the vessels that his father took from Israel, took from Jerusalem, and then they began to, mess around, play around with him like it's a dope. Keep going.
Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes, his wives, and his concubines drank in them. They drank wine and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. In the same hour came forth the fingers of a man's hand and wrote over against the candlestick upon the plaster on the wall of the king's palace.
Right.
The king saw the part of the hand that wrote.
Right. So now a hand appeared out of nowhere and just started writing on the wall. Right. Keep going.
Then the king's countenance was changed, and his thoughts troubled him, so that the joints of his loins were loosed, and his knees smote one against the other.
Right. So the joints of his loins were loose. Right. So this part of his leg is loose. Then his knees start smoking, so he's sitting there shivering. He is shaking. Right. Yeah, just like on the cartoon. So he's seeing a hand right on the wall. It scared him. Scared him so much that the joints of his loins got loose and his knees start smiting together. They start shaking and hitting itself, hitting together. Zahar, be quiet. Sit down. Don't move. All right, keep going.
The king cried aloud to bring in the astrologers, the Chaldeans, and the soothsayers. And the king spake and said to the wise men of Babylon, whosoever shall read this writing and show me the interpretation thereof shall be clothed with scarlet and have a chain of gold about his neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom.
Right. So after the writing was on the wall, he saw it. Nobody could read it. He tried to find somebody who could read it. And he said that he would give them the chain on their neck, and then they would be clothed in scarlet, and then they also be made the third ruler. Right. So that just means that there was three rulers. History would tell us that Belshazzar was one ruler. There was somebody else that ruled with him. So he was offering to make them the third ruler. All right, keep going.
Then came in all the king's wise men, but they could not read the writing nor make known the king the interpretation thereof. Then was King Belshazzar greatly troubled, and his countenance was changed in him, and his lords were astonished. Astonied. Now the queen, by reason of the words of the kings and his lords, came into the banquet house, and the queen spake and said, O king, live forever. Let not thy thoughts trouble thee, nor let thy countenance be changed. There is a man in thy kingdom in whom is the spirit of the holy gods, and in the days of thy father light and understanding and wisdom, like the wisdom of the gods, was found in him, whom the king Nebuchadnezzar thy father, the king, I say thy father, made master of the magicians, astrologers, Chaldeans, and soothsayers.
Right. So we remember this. We talked about how Daniel came in. He was made a eunuch. Right. And he was a eunuch. He had brought in with the eunuchs. And so him and his counterparts and his other Hebrew friends, they came in, or other Hebrew brethren, we should say, and they came in and they ended up interpreting the dream of Nebuchadnezzar that nobody else could interpret. Right. And so after that, Nebuchadnezzar made them high. Right. He gave them higher responsibilities, and he gave them respectable positions. Right. Them being Hebrews, that was something that was different. So now, when his son is having an issue and needs some interpretation, and none of the magicians could figure it out, all the writing on the wall, what he looked at it was, okay, what am I going to do? But then somebody came up, was like, well, hold on. Now your pops, remember this guy named Daniel. He used to look out for him, and he's wise. He got like the knowledge of the gods in him. He'd be figuring out all types of stuff. All right. So then he tried to get them to get Daniel to try to figure this stuff out. So let's see what happens next.
For as much as an excellent spirit and knowledge and understanding, interpretation of dreams, and showing of hard sentences, and dissolvings of doubts were found in the same Daniel, whom the king named Belteshazzar. Now let Daniel be called, and he will show the interpretation.
Mm-hmm.
Then was Daniel brought in before the king, and the king spake and said unto Daniel, Art thou that Daniel which are of the children of the captivity of Judah, whom the king of my father brought out of Jewry? I have even heard of thee, that the spirit of the gods is in thee, and that light and understanding and excellent wisdom is found in thee. And now the wise men, the astrologers, have been brought in before me, that they should read this writing and make known unto me the interpretation thereof, but they could not show the interpretation of the thing. And I have heard of thee, that thou canst make interpretations and dissolve doubts. Now if thou canst read the writing and make known to me the interpretation thereof, thou shalt be clothed with scarlet, and have a chain of gold about thy neck, and shall be the third ruler in the kingdom.
All right, keep going.
Then Daniel answered and said before the king, Let thy gifts be to thyself, and give thy rewards to another. Yet I will read the writing unto the king, and make known to him the interpretation.
All right, so Daniel said, Don't worry about it. I'll figure it out for you. But I don't want your gifts. All right, go ahead and give your gifts to somebody else. All right, keep going.
O thou king, the Most High God gave Nebuchadnezzar thy father a kingdom in majesty and glory and honor.
This is Daniel talking. Now he's talking to him. He's like, okay, listen, king. You know what I'm saying? The Most High God, he gave your father all this good stuff. Keep going.
And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him, whom would he slew, and whom he would he slew, and whom he would he kept alive, and whom he would he set up, and whom he would he put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over it whomsoever he will.
Right. So this is what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. We read about this, right? But Nebuchadnezzar, he ended up being just like an animal until he lifted up his eyes, right? And he saw, okay, then the Most High gave him back his understanding, right? So he was humbled. This is him being humbled here. Keep going.
And thou, his son, O Belshazzar, has not humbled thine heart, though thou knowest all this.
Right. So then he looked at Belshazzar. He's like, so you already know this stuff, right? You already know what I'm telling you right now. Don't try to act like it's something new. You heard about what happened to your pop. You already knew it, and you still didn't humble your heart. Right. And that's the same kind of things that we go through. We go through all these different things in our life, or we see people that go through things and we know why it happened, right? We have enough information to know that we should turn away from certain things or stay away from certain things, and we still go through it, right? And so that's what makes it tough. That's what makes it hard for us, because now we're in a position where we know it, and now we calling on God to help us about something that we already knew not to do, right? So let's go to let's hold there. We're gonna come back there, but let's real quick on that stuff. Let's go to John chapter 5, verse 18. Tasha, what are you doing? Bring your butt in here.
Therefore, the Jews sought the more to kill him, because he not only had broken the Sabbath, but said also that God was his father, making himself equal with God.
Right. So Yahushua was thought to be killed by the Jews, right? And the reason why, because they thought they perceived him as making himself equal with God by saying, read the verse right before that.
But Jesus answered them, My Father worketh hereunto, and I work.
All right. So Jesus, when they asked him, he said, they had asked him about working on the Sabbath, right? He is like, well, my Father worked, and so now I'm gonna work too. All right, keep going.
Then answered Jesus and said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you, the Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do. For what things soever he doeth, these also doth the Son likewise.
Mm-hmm.
For the Father loveth the Son, and showeth him all things that himself doeth. And he who will show him greater works than these, that ye may marvel. And he will show him greater works than these, that ye may marvel. For as the Father raises up the dead and quickeneth them, even so the Son quickeneth whom he will. For the Father judgeth no man, but hath committed.
What verse you at?
22.
Keep going.
But hath committed all judgment unto the Son, that all men should honor the Son, even as they honor the Father. He that honoreth not the Son honoreth not the Father which hath sent him.
All right, so go back to verse 19.
Then answered Jesus and said unto them, Verily, verily, I say unto you.
All right, he said, Verily, verily, I say unto you.
The Son can do nothing of himself, but what he seeth the Father do.
All right, so the Son could only do what he saw the Father do. Watch this.
For what things soever he doeth, these also doth the Son likewise. For the Father loveth the Son, and showeth him all things that himself doeth, and he will show him greater works than these, that ye may marvel. For as the Father raiseth up the dead and quickeneth them, even so the Son.
So what did quickeneth mean? Make them alive. So he said, just like how the Father raised people from dead and make them alive, even so the Son
quickeneth whom he will.
Right, and he quickeneth whom he will. Right. So pay attention to that. So the Father gave it to the Son to raise up the dead and quickeneth whom he will. Let's jump back to Daniel. This is Daniel chapter 5. I don't know what verse. No idea.
22.
20 what?
22.
22?
Yeah.
This is Daniel chapter 5, verse 22.
And thou his son, O Belshazzar.
Go back to verse 19.
And for the majesty that he gave him, all people, nations, and languages trembled and feared before him. Whom he would, he slew.
So whom he what?
Whom he would, he slew.
And whom he what?
And whom he would, he kept alive.
So what does that sound like?
The Father.
Sound like Yahushua, don't it? All right, because Yahushua, he said the Father, he said, I do only what I see the Father do. The Father, you know what I'm saying? He can raise the dead and quicken them, make them alive, right? And whom he would. He said he'd do it to whomsoever he will, right? The same thing with Nebuchadnezzar. Whom he would, he'd slay. Or whom he would, he'd make them alive. He'd quicken them, all right? So we see this is, again, why we look at Nebuchadnezzar as being a testimony of who? Yahushua, right? Jesus, right? He ends up being a testimony. That's why when we see in Isaiah chapter 14, it talks about Lucifer, right? And Lucifer was actually talking about the king of Babylon. And the king of Babylon is actually a testimony of who? So when we think of Lucifer, Lucifer is actually a testimony of Yahushua, right? Keep going.
And whom he would, he set up, and whom he would, he put down. But when his heart was lifted up and his mind hardened in pride, he was deposed from his kingly throne, and they took his glory from him. And he was driven from the sons of men, and his heart was made like the beasts, and his dwelling was with the wild donkeys. They fed him with grass like oxen, and his body was wet with the dew of heaven, till he knew that the Most High God ruled in the kingdom of men, and that he appointed over it whomsoever he will. And thou, his son, O Belshazzar, hast not humbled thine heart, though thou knowest all this, but hast lifted up thyself against the Lord of heaven, and they have brought the vessels of his house before thee. And thou and thy lords, thy wives and thy concubines have drunk wine in them. And thou hast praised the gods of silver and gold, of brass, iron, wood, and stone, which see not, hear not, nor know. And the God in whose hand thy breath is, in whose are all thy ways, hast thou not glorified.
All right, he said you didn't glorify the Most High God, though, the one whose breath, you know what I'm saying? He holds your breath in his hands, right? And he has all your ways, right? You didn't glorify him. You glorified all these things that don't see and don't hear. All right, keep going.
Then was the part of the hand sent from him, and his writing was written.
All right, so Daniel's now he's getting, this is all the intro. He's just looking like, man, you already know the history. You know what happened to you already know this stuff, and you still didn't humble your heart. So now let me get to the hand. So for this reason, this is why the hand came, right? And the hand was sent to you. And what happened?
And this is the writing that was written. Many tekel upraisen, upharsin. This is the interpretation of the thing many. God hath numbered thy kingdom and finished it. Tekel, thou art weighed in the balances and art found wanting.
Right? So he said, Most High God, he's numbered your kingdom. In other words, you have you set to go, right? He'd already numbered it like, you only got this many days left, right? Then he said, well, tekel, right? Well, that means that you weighed in the balance, right? And you're found wanting. So weighed in the balance and found wanting that's when one side is down here and the other side is up there. So when he says wanting, which side do you think wants? This one, right? Because you need to put some more on there to keep it balanced. So he said you weighed in the balance. And your side, it wants something, right? To try to even it out, you're found wanting, right? Keep going.
Perez, thy kingdom is divided and given to the Medes and Persians.
Right? Then he said, Perez, thy kingdom is divided and it's given to who?
The Medes and Persians.
So who remembers King Cyrus? Where was King Cyrus from? Persia.
Aladdin, I remember now.
Yeah, so we talked about that. So we remember Cyrus. That's how we got when we talked about Cyrus, we said we had to fill this in. We had to figure out, well, how in the world is Cyrus, because we know Nebuchadnezzar was running stuff. How in the world did we get all the way to Cyrus, though, who was a Persian? So now we see Daniel is prophesying to the king, Belshazzar. He's telling them, well, you found wanting. Oh, and also your kingdom, it's numbered. You're found wanting, and it's given over to the Medes and to the Persians. All right, keep reading. Let's see if we can keep figuring out. That's two people. Remember, it's Medes and the Persians, right? So let's see.
In that night was Belshazzar, the king of the Chaldeans, slain.
In that very night, he was slain, right? So the Most High God gave him that warning, and in that very night, he was killed. He didn't get the same chance that Nebuchadnezzar got, right? He didn't kill Nebuchadnezzar. Nebuchadnezzar, he just humbled him, right? This Belshazzar, he didn't give him that chance. He just looked at him and was like, okay, you knew all this stuff, right? So I'm gonna make sure you end up being a testimony to the rest of the people. I'm gonna make sure I write you in a book. All right, keep going.
So I'll skip verse 29. Then commanded Belshazzar, and they clothed Daniel with scarlet and put a chain of gold about his neck and made a proclamation concerning him that he should be the third ruler in the kingdom.
That's important. All right, I'm happy you went back. That's important. This is what happened to Daniel right before Belshazzar got killed. Right, so he was made a ruler in the kingdom right before Belshazzar got killed. Watch this.
And that night was Belshazzar, the king, killed of the Chaldeans, king of the Chaldeans, slain. And Darius the Median took the kingdom, being about 62 years old.
So he said the kingdom was given over to the Medes and the Persians. So now you have Darius. He came in, he killed Belshazzar, and he's a Median, a Mede, right? So he's from Media, right? And so now he runs the kingdom, all right? So now it's been given over to the Medes, right? We'll end up getting to the Persians as well. The kingdoms kind of worked together at this point in history. So they didn't really fight together, fight against each other too much. They're pretty much in concert, right?
Like America and Puerto Rico, America and Hawaii.
Like more like
nope, it's not.
It's more like the EU or the United Nations. Yeah, the United Nations. More like NATO
and Korea.
No.
I know she wouldn't like that.
Yeah, I'm about to say, yeah, no.
She's got offended.
No, not a good one. But so they were working together at this time. They took nations together and all that, right? So now we have Darius. He comes in, right? That was the end of chapter 5, on chapter 6. Let's keep reading.
It pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the whole kingdom.
Right. So now it pleased Darius. Now Darius has the kingdom. Right. Darius is running things. He killed Belshazzar. It's his kingdom now. So it pleased him to set over the kingdom 120 princes. 120 princes are those 120 sons of the king, or what? What does 120 princes mean then? Rulers, right? So it pleased him to put 120 rulers under him. So they ruled different parts. All right, keep going.
And over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first.
Right. So over these, he had 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was what?
First.
He was first. And why does that make sense? Because Daniel was made a ruler already. All right. So now when Darius came in, he said, oh, you a man who, oh, you got authority in these parts, the people already know you. Well, I tell you what, you work for me now. Keep your authority. Do this. Now you're a president over me. So now him being the 3rd ruler in the kingdom, he kept that position. Now he just under Darius, and now he rules all the other rulers, the 120 rulers under him. All right. So he kept his authority. That's why it was important that the Most High God made the hand come, just so Daniel could end up being blessed to be in a position of authority and not in a position where he ended up getting downtrodden. Right. So Most High God had a plan for him the whole time. All right, keep going.
That the princes might have accounts unto them, and the king should have no damage.
All right. So in other words, the king, he ain't gonna suffer no loss. Daniel, you deal with them. Make sure that the princes deal with you. You talk to me. I don't talk to these people. I don't suffer any loss. All right. Same way businesses work, like in my job, right? You have the CEO and the president, right? And then you have each department that has a few AVPs. I'm sorry, a few vice presidents. All right. So like in my department, I have 2 vice presidents, really. Right. And then under those, then you have a bunch of AVPs. So we have like 3 AVPs just in customer service alone, 4 maybe, 4 AVPs, and that's assistant vice presidents. Then under that, you have supervisors. All right. Then under those supervisors, you have team leads. Then under those team leads, you have regular reps. And so then the regular reps would talk to me as a team. Well, actually, guys, I just got promoted to interim supervisor. So the team leads, they talk to the team leads, then they talk to me as a supervisor, right? And to my other counterparts. Then we would end up talking to the AVPs, and the AVPs would end up talking to the president, and the president would have the meetings with the CEO. So that's how he was looking at it. He was like, I don't want to suffer no loss. The president don't want to have to, the president of the company don't want to have to come all the way down and talk to the reps and deal with them and have to answer questions that, really, I don't really know nothing about that, bro. You know what I'm saying? I know big picture stuff. You know what I'm saying? You give me the big numbers, the stats, I tell you where it's supposed to go. You know what I'm saying? The intricacy, I don't really know how to work a fraud case, right? I don't really know how to speak to a customer on the phone. These are not my expertise. I know how to run the whole company, right? And that's how Darius was. He said, I'm the king, right? I know how to run the whole company. Daniel, you've been doing this already? You a ruler in these parts? Okay, you keep doing what you're doing. I don't want to suffer any loss, all right? Keep going.
Then this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes because an excellent spirit was in him, and the king thought to set him over the whole realm.
All right, so the most high put an excellent spirit in him. So now the king, he was looking like, I like this guy Daniel. So he's thinking about promoting the man. He was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and set him over the whole thing. You know what I'm saying? He's thinking about that. So how do you think other people felt about it? It's Hebrew? You gonna set the Hebrew over the whole thing? Nah, it's not gonna fly. That ain't gonna fly. So let's see what they're talking about.
Then the president and princes sought to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom, but they could not find none occasion nor fault.
Right.
For as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him.
Right. So what we look at here is now the other presidents, his counterparts, they was looking to find some type of fault to make him look bad. Right. But they couldn't because he was faithful. What did it say after that?
But they could not find none occasion nor fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him.
Right. They couldn't find any occasion. They couldn't find any fault, any error. Keep going.
Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God.
He said the only way we gonna do it is if we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Right? You know how ridiculous that sounds? The only way I can find something against you is if I prove that you're righteous. That's how backwards the world is. Right? The world's looking like, well, if we make it a problem that he's doing what he's supposed to do, right? That's the only way we could do it, because we don't like doing the right thing, right? And that's the same way that they got Yahushua, right? Remember, they got Yahushua. Did they get him apart from the law? No, they got him. We just read it. They got him for breaking the Sabbath and making himself equal with God. That's against our law, right? So that when they found Yahushua, they had to get him according to what the law said, right? The law of his God. They couldn't get him with nothing else, right? That's why Yahushua, when he went up, it was according to the law. That's why he said this has to happen, right? It was all according to the law, right? And that's the same thing that they'll try to do for us, right? They'll look for that's why the Bible try to stress so much about us making sure we act and have a behavior that no one can find any occasion against us, right? Because that puts them in a position where they have to speak against God himself. Does that make sense? It kind of ties in what we were talking about before, right? If they don't accept us, then really what they're rejecting is the Most High God. If our behavior is correct. If our behavior is something, we're not coming in the name of God. We're not speaking in the name of God, right? If our behavior is correct, then the only thing they can do is reject God to be against us. All right, keep going. Matter of fact, don't keep going. Go to Titus. I'm going to go to Titus chapter 2. You know what I'm talking about? All right. Titus chapter 2, verse 6. Titus is after Timothy, toward the back.
I understood that. He's getting good.
Good.
It hurts?
Yeah.
Yeah, it does. Are you talking to me, really? He doesn't talk to me. That was a nod too, and I got too excited. So we're going to do it again.
2 verse what?
Check it out.
This is Titus chapter 2, verse 6.
Young men likewise exhort to be sober-minded.
Right. So he said, exhort the young men to be sober-minded. Right. What does sober-minded mean?
Not intoxicated.
Yeah, I guess that too. But that's not the only thing sober-minded. What does sober-minded mean?
Keeping a level head.
Thinking clearly, keeping a level head. Right. Not with all these wild thoughts. I got a homeboy. I mean, every time you talk to him, he got some wild thought. And I'm trying to tell you, cuz we gonna be at the top. Man, we can go meet Obama right now. Right. He had these wild thoughts. Right. And just everything is just extreme for him. It's just not sober thinking. Right. He don't even have to be high to think. It's just not sober thinking. We can fall into the same thing. Right. That's an extreme example, but all of us can fall into the exact same thing, just not thinking clearly, thinking about things that just far off, don't have nothing to do with anything. You have to think soberly. So he said, exhort the young men, stay focused, right? Think soberly. Keep going.
In all things, showing thyself a pattern of good works.
A pattern of what?
Good works.
So what's a pattern?
A habit.
A habit, a continuous thing, right? He said, show yourself a continuously showing good works. Not, well, I did a few good things and, what I'm saying, don't that count for something? No. Continuously doing it. Showing a pattern of good works. Keep going.
In doctrine, showing uncorruptness, gravity, sincerity.
All right. So that means your doctrine got to be right. It got to be level. Right. And they got to be sincere. Keep going.
Sound speech that cannot be condemned.
Right. You have to say things that nobody can speak against. Right. Sound speech. Sound just means correct. Right. So correct speech that cannot be condemned. When you say something, it's right. All right. Keep going.
That he that is of the contrary part may be ashamed, having no evil thing to say of you.
All right. So anybody who's of the contrary part, in other words, anybody who wants to, it went out, but it's back now. So anyways, go to Acts chapter 19, verse 12.
So that
this is, and what we're doing right now is to answer Danielle's question. She asked, is it real when you got a people that's falling out in church and doing all that stuff? And we ask the question, well, is that stuff real? Right? Are all these people just faking, or are they really experiencing something? Let's see what the word can tell us and try to impart onto it.
So that from his body were brought unto the sick handkerchiefs and aprons, and the diseases departed from them, and the evil spirits went out of them.
All right, so evil spirits really went out of people when Paul had handkerchiefs that came from him to people. Evil spirits went out of these people and they were healed, right? Let's hear what else happened.
Then certain of the vagabond Jews,
right? So a vagabond Jew, that's a Jew that's a traveler, right? A wanderer, right? So it's a wandering Jew. This is somebody who, you know what I'm saying? I'm from Judah, you know what I'm saying? But now I'm all over the place. I dwell in a lot of different places, all right? So he said, as a vagabond Jew, he said, certain of them who are also exorcists. That just means they get rid of the spirits, the evil spirits, right? When they saw about this, let's see what happened.
Exorcists took upon them to call over them which had evil spirits the name of the Lord Jesus, saying, we adjure you by Jesus whom Paul preacheth.
Right. So he said, these exorcists, these vagabond Jews, these wandering Jews, they came on and they tried to cast out demons just like they saw Paul doing. So he said, we adjure you, we command you. The same one by the name Jesus. You know what I'm saying? The same one that Paul preached. Keep going.
And they were 7 sons of one Sceva, a Jew, and the chief of the priests, which did so. And the evil spirit answered and said, Jesus I know.
So the evil spirit didn't answer them, right? He said, well, I know Jesus. Who else he know?
And Paul I know.
He said, and I know Paul, right? So they said, we adjure you by Jesus, the same one that Paul preached, right? We command you to come up out of this person by Jesus, in Jesus' name, the Jesus that Paul preached. So the evil spirit looked at him and said, well, I know Jesus now. You know what I'm saying? Jesus, well, I know him. And Paul, I know him. You know what I'm saying? He be giving us a whole lot of trouble. But
who are you?
He said, hey, but I don't know you. All right, this evil spirit's looking like, I don't know anything about you. Keep going.
And the man in whom the evil spirit was leaped on them and overcame them and prevailed against them. So they fled out of that house naked and wounded. And this was known.
So now we see when these women, they touch them, and the women fall out, they be exposed, and they say they got to put the covers on it. They naked, right? That's why they got to put the cover on to make sure they don't expose themselves, right? So anybody who get a spirit that causes them to mess around and expose themselves, what does that sound like if we look at the Bible? It sounds like an evil spirit to me, right? Right, and the same thing when we look at these people running around, it said it overcame them and they ran out. Right, so they end up running and doing all this crazy stuff. We never heard anything like that when you get the Holy Spirit, right? When you get the set apart spirit, it doesn't happen, right? But when you deal with this evil spirit, it said it happened, right? And they ran out and they fled.
Spirit beat up on the men.
All right, so we look at it. This is what happens when evil spirit. Some of this stuff is real, right? Some of these people faking, right? Some of these people just doing whatever they can do to be involved. But some of this stuff is actual spirits coming over these people. They playing around with stuff they have no idea about. They trying to cast out demons. They trying to heal people like they see stuff in the Bible. But these spirits don't know them. These spirits don't know. I have no idea who you are. So what you going? So you think you cast me out? Oh, now I'm gonna jump on you. So now you have these pastors who then played around with these spirits. They touching other people playing around with spirits, and so now you just have these spirits just jumping back and forth to people, back and forth, all right. And all this stuff is just a spiritual realm that people don't see. They don't know. We don't even see. The only thing we can do is compare it to what we see in the word. That's why the word tells us test the spirits. Because he said many spirits have gone out, right? That's why we have to compare it to what the word says. Well, this is what happened when people got the spirit, the Holy Spirit, right? These are the fruits of the Holy Spirit. This is what it produces, right? But this is what happens when I go to church. If we know the word, we'd be able to look at it and be like, wait a minute, that's not right. Something's not right here. But when we don't know the word, it all looks right to us. All right, let's go ahead and try to finish back off in 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 4. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verse 4. See, I think the thing went out again. I got to keep my eye on it now. I don't know what would have made it go out.
For if he that cometh preacheth another Jesus, whom we have not preached, or if you receive another spirit which ye have not received, or another gospel which ye have not accepted, ye might well bear with him. He
said that you might well bear with them. And Paul already knew this, right? That's why it's so easy for people to believe things that are not true. But when they hear the truth, it's tough. It's the same thing, right? Same thing today. Keep going.
For I suppose I was not with behind the very chiefest apostles.
All right, he said it was some chief apostle there. He said, but I wasn't dumber than him. All right, keep going.
But though I be rude in speech, yet not in knowledge.
And he said, even if I speak improperly, right? I speak a little bit of slang. I don't know the proper way to speak. He said, though I be rude in speech. He said, what else?
Yet not in knowledge.
He said, I know what I'm talking about, though. All right. What I'm talking about for sure, I know it. All right, keep going.
But we have been thoroughly made manifest among you in all things.
Mm-hmm.
Have I committed an office in abasing myself that you might be exalted because I have preached to you the gospel of God freely?
Right. He said, did I offend you? Right. Did I offend you by abasing myself, by humbling myself and not charging you to preach the word? Right. I don't charge anybody a tithe. I don't charge anybody offering or anything. Right. He said, am I doing something? Did I offend somebody by doing that? All right. That's what Paul is. He said, did I offend somebody by doing this? I'm doing this for. He's going to tell you about what he do to other churches, other congregations.
I robbed other churches, taking wages of them to do you service.
Right. He said, I collect money from other congregations just so I'll be able to do service for y'all, to be able to preach to y'all free of charge, don't even mention money. Right. Keep going.
And when I was present with you and wanted, I was chargeable to no man for that which was lacking to me, the brethren which came from Macedonia supplied.
Right. He said, oh, go ahead.
And in all things I have kept myself from being burdensome to you, and so will I keep myself.
He said, when I was in a time of need, I didn't ask y'all for anything. Somebody came way from out of town to help me out. Right. And then anytime I did need something, I made sure I wasn't a burden on any of y'all. Right. So this is what he's saying, because what he's competing up against people that's speaking against him and preaching another gospel. And so now he's trying to show these people, these are the people y'all believe, and they charge you tithes. They do all these things, and y'all, this is the stuff that validates them, right? They look at it. Yeah, you know what? These people are real. They actually collected money for God, right? And so Paul's trying to tell you, oh, so that's why you think they real. So I'm wrong now for doing this for free, right? For not charging y'all anything, not putting up a collection plate. Now I'm wrong. They the ones that doing it right, and they charge me, right? So keep going.
As the truth of Christ is in me, no man shall stop me of this boasting in the regions of Achaia.
Right? He said, nobody's going to shut me up from boasting. Right? And what is he boasting about?
The word.
The word. All right? He's boasting about how he's been made humble in God. All right? That's why he said, bear with me in this folly. All right? Keep going.
Wherefore, because I love you not, God knoweth. But what I do, that I will do, that I may cut off occasion from them which desire occasion, that wherein they glory, they may be found even as we.
All right. So he said, what I do, I'm going to continue to do, because what I want to do is cut off any occasion of those people who glory. Right. Because what they do is they try to show themselves just like we are. All right. So you have to understand, there's people out here, the pastors. Right, we're talking about how people think I'm hating on pastors and all that. You have these pastors that try to show, what do they say? First thing you do, let's hear the word of God. Right, it's time to get a word. The people go to the church. Yeah, the God did give us a word today. Pastor didn't speak the word. Right, so they try to show us, even as disciples, real disciples who actually preach the word. And so Paul is saying, no. I'm trying to cut off any occasion for them to show themselves like me. You want to be like me? You have to be humble, right? You want to be like me, you have to make sure that you're not charging these people, right? You put yourself last, right? Be able to sacrifice everything, right? That's why he said he put himself in a position that they wouldn't be interested in trying to copy, because they want the glory. They want to be able, y'all hear about Creflo Dollar? He wanted I think it was a G5, a jet. Yeah, it says he took up an offering for his congregations to start paying towards, because he took up offering for a congregation to get a jet for him, $62 million jet or something like that, $60-something million jet. All right, and I thought it was fake at first. I was like, this can't be real. Nobody be this darn silly. It was on the news, real news stations all over the place. I'm like, this is real. I was like, that's crazy.
Did it work? Is everybody tripping out? Or?
Yeah, there's a lot of people tripping. I think he stopped now. I think he stopped it after it had a whole lot of, blowout. But I mean, this is what they do. So what they're looking for is glory, for expensive things. That's just an extreme case. These other pastors the same way. They just don't have. I mean, he has enough people and enough wealthy people where he could actually say that and it could happen, right? These other pastors, they couldn't dream anything like that. So they'd just take up an offering for they Escalade, right, or whatever they want to do, right? But that's what they're looking for. They're looking for glory. They're looking for all these different things. So now Paul's saying, well, I'm trying to cut off that occasion. Because of that, I'm not charging you anything, right? When I come to you, I don't need anything from you. I don't want to ask you. I don't want to be a burden to you. I don't want you to do anything. I don't want you to serve me. I'm going to serve you, right? Because I don't want you to have any reason to be like, well, he did anything. I like these guys better. I'm going to make sure I do nothing wrong, that you have no occasion to speak. And these guys could never say that they like me, right? Unless they actually are. All right, keep going.
For such are false apostles.
He said they're false apostles.
Deceitful workers.
Deceitful workers.
Transforming themselves into the apostles of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And no marvel, for Satan himself is transformed into an angel of light.
All right, so these people look like they're apostles of Christ. But that's not a marvel, because Satan transformed himself into an angel of light. All right, keep going.
Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also be transformed as the ministers of righteousness, whose end shall be according to their works.
All right, so these same people who are ministers that's working after Satan, it's no big deal that they end up looking like they're ministers of light. When in actuality, they're not. So that's why we do these things. That's why we look at it. That's why we criticize what these other people believe. That's why we mock it. Quite frankly, we mock what they do. Right? We look at it because we want to cut off any occasion for these people who are not disciples to try to appear as disciples with the hope to draw people away from the one true gospel. That way, when they speak against us, right, the only thing they can do is speak against what's right, which means they're speaking against the Father. Right? We can go ahead in there. Really, we're going to get back to Daniel next week and start finishing off with the people. Let's read it real quick just so we don't forget where we were. So this is Daniel chapter 5. I'm sorry, Daniel chapter 6, verse 5. I'm gonna have to chop this Bible study all up. I'm gonna do some editing.
Then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God.
Mm-hmm.
Then these presidents and princes assembled together to the king and said unto him, King Darius, live forever.
He said, King Darius, live forever.
And all the presidents of the kingdom and the governors and the princes, the counselors and the captains have consulted together to establish a royal statute and to make a firm decree that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions.
All right. So they came to the king and they said, you know what? Let's make a law that anybody who prays, if asks a petition, so ask any man or any God for anything except for you, right? People should have to pray to you and come to you for everything. If they pray or ask any other man for anything else for 30 whole days, then they should be thrown into the den of lions. So the king was like, I like that. Make sure all the people come to me, right? So he is down for it. So he ended up making that a law. So we'll find out. And why do you think they'd make that law? To get rid of Daniel, because they know that Daniel, that's going to go against Daniel's law to ask to pray to the king, right? So they're looking like we can catch this man up according to his law, right? So they tried to catch him up with what was right. And we're going to see how the Most High God dealt with the whole situation next week. All right, let's go ahead and, well, any questions or anything? Let's pray out then.